Yes, call me Bob if you want.
Okay. So anyway, he's going to be sharing his travel experience with us today. So welcome.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you all for being here and listening to me. Not that you got a choice, I'm just kidding. And thank you, Joan, also for inviting me as well. Joan saw me speak at the Prescott Library back on Sunday, January 11th this year, when the library asked me to come to the same thing actually regarding my book. I don't know if it shows at the beginning or the end, but I spent 20 years writing my travel log here as such, and I do have copies over there at the end of the speech if anyone's interested. It's also on Amazon, Paradigm bookstore downtown, and also in Hastings. I was born in South East England so many years ago, not my age, but at a little town called Southend, and my mum and dad were cockneys basically. So when I was a boy growing up, there was a lot of like kind of cockney language going on, like apples and pears, stairs, cane and apple, table, etc. And for the first 15 years of my life, I was just educated just in the usual English institutional stuff in schools, and then I legally left school when I was 15. I got involved in the UK punk era for a while, had the mohawks and the spiked hair, dirty clothes, etc, etc. And when I was 20, 2 days after my 20th birthday, I kind of looked around me. I thought, you know what, many of my friends were getting mortgages, settling down, getting married, and I just thought some of them were actually dead by that point, so much hate to say it. And I thought to myself, you know, I really want to get out there and just see the world. And my uncle, back in the 60s, he travelled a lot, maybe a little different to the way I did it in my time, but I know he hitchhiked from the States and Canada and many other places. And anyway, so on Sunday, funny enough, the same date happened last week. On Sunday, July 12th of '87, I just decided, you know what, I'm done, I'm out of here, and so I left. And I kind of lived and worked in Holland for about 5 months, which wasn't really a big step from England down across to Holland, but for me it wasn't like some of your daughters or sons may have just said, you know what, I want to go away from mum and dad for a while, so I might move to Phoenix or Chicago. But technically you can always go and drive and see them, or get a train, whatever it might be. But you know, in my case, I think I felt more like I was travelling because there's actually a little sea between us, between England and Holland. So I lived in Holland for a few months, worked with the bulbs, as in the flowering bulbs, and it was got some money together there. Went back to England, and then I stayed there for 6 months, got some money together, and really, which is the main part of this book, the main travels really started around July 19th of 1988, and I left, flew to Australia for the first time in my life, and to me it was a big thing going from this small little country in England to the other side of the world, and worked a couple of months, and then I just thought, okay, this is it. And then basically from probably around say Tuesday, September 20th, 1988, somewhere in that ballpark, from that point onwards, I just started to hitchhike, and in the relevant years that followed, I hitchhiked 64,000 miles, going through about 10 countries, step-footing actually 19 countries in the end. But any of you that are familiar with Australia, went all the way around Australia through the middle, and then I spent 2.5 months in New Zealand, both islands, which I knew very little about, but when I was a kid, I remember my geography teacher always talked about New Zealand and how in a way it was very similar to England as such. And then on Saturday, I think it was July 15th, but anyway, around July 15th time of 1989, I flew back to United Kingdom. And it was really surreal for me, having just spent a whole year in a completely different environment, different people, different accents, different culture, different way of living, bigger cars, bigger roads, deserts, and finding that in Australia, which most people read the book, they always like the Australian part. Seeing that, experiencing that, it really was strange going back to this really compound country with just cement everywhere and pollution, and anyway, it's just different. And I stayed home for about 7 weeks, and then on Thursday, September 7th of '89, I thought, okay, I went to the place that always fascinated me since I was a child, which is your own country, being the United States of America. And in that era, I was always interested, and I guess my only introduction really to the United States was back in the 70s. You guys used to watch Kojak, the Hulk, $6 Million Man, Starsky and Hutch, Chips, that whole era. So the big old gas guzzling cars, which probably late 80s, they were still there, but not as many as such. And I think in the United States I hitchhiked roughly about 37,000 miles in the years that I was here, went through 42 states, including almost one side of Canada, as in Montreal area, across to the other side of Canada, Vancouver Island, up to Hitchhiking west to Alaska, back, and then on Friday, August 31st of 1989, after I've been in the Northern Hemisphere for a year, I decided to just leave and went to Asia, and I spent about 6 weeks in Asia, and that's kind of where the story ends really, but it took me 20 years just to get the story that I've told you about onto paper, and of course there's a lot more involved in the story, it's not just the brief part I just told you, but you know, people that have read it, including one person in the audience here that has read it, it's I personally tried to write it so that you're with the author all the time. And I had a lady, somewhere in the Midwest, I apologise not knowing where she is, but about 4 years ago she asked me for a copy of my book, and I sent it to her, and it took her 4 years to finally write, and the other day she wrote to me, she said, you know, I've just left a review for you on Amazon, which I think is about 28 reviews on there now, and she just said, as many other people have said, I'm not trying to promote the book, but it gives me, I think, confidence and makes me happy that what she said is what others have said, that it's like you're with the author all the time, you're kind of with that person on their story, as I've done my travel log as such, and spent many years writing, and really that's kind of where I'm at. But did I speak for enough time, or do you want me to speak longer? Or?
Yeah, a few more minutes.
Okay, that's fine.
Maybe somebody might have questions or answers.
Okay. I think what's nice as well is being a local author. I've had some people get in touch with me and just say, you know, for example myself, I admit I haven't read much during my life, maybe 100 books since I was a kid. And the few books I have read, I thought, wow, you know, where does this author live? Edmund Bain, back in the 70s, was lovely Edmund Bain books. I think I've got about 10 of his books, Acts and many others. And but to me, it just always seemed unobtainable to reach these people and talk to them and ask them questions. And I think one thing that a lot of people have liked, at least locally or in the United States of America, or those that have known me in the 9 or 10 countries that the book is in, is the fact that you can just get in touch with that person, ask them questions. And yesterday, I got on a quest, a couple more minutes and I'm done. Yesterday, I got on a couple of quests where a lady who is now an adult, a mother herself, back around 1990 time, I took a photograph of her when I gave her this birthday present when she was really, really young. And for the life of me, I've gone through about 3,000 of my 32,000 photographs trying to find this picture, and I couldn't find it. But when I'm going through it, the obsessive compulsive part in me thought, okay, all these pictures of all these people, so of course then I started a book, read about their book or read more about them as such. So that's it. Any questions?
What country did you find it most difficult to get rides in?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I was in the United States for a long time, and I've really gone from one extreme to another in this country. Not, of course, not now I'm an adult, I'm a father myself, but back in the day when I moved here from 89 through to 97 on and off. And I've gone from some really, really, really horrendous long waits here, harassment with the police department, right through to just getting one ride after another. But the longest ride I ever had was, even though I didn't stand at that full amount of time, was about 27 hours in Australia, and I was caught in the middle of the desert in Cooper Pedy.
Yeah.
And I mean, really,
in there.
Yeah. Okay. So you know it, and it was unfortunately there was a huge storm that was north of me that was coming down. I didn't realise this. It stopped all traffic because the whole road was washed out. So, you know.
We were up to the Ayers Rock. Not that we were hitchhiking. We had a bus.
Right. I've been to Ayers Rock.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting place. Intriguing.
Yeah, the mosquitoes and flies really like you. You learn that Australian solution in a short time.
Right. There you go. You're a walking meal.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was your the best place you ever stayed at or was in that really caught your attention or really spoke to you?
I've been asked that question many times over the years, and I've never been able to answer it with one simple answer, and I think you can all relate to this. Sometimes I'll explain myself and you understand what I'm trying to say. I think my favourite city was Melbourne. When I was there, it may have changed since. I loved the people, the way I was treated. For some reason, I just felt really at home and in tune with Melbourne. But south of Melbourne, slightly southeast, rough ballpark, I want to say 150 clicks, there was a place called Leongatha, Victoria, Australia, and funny enough, that's where I flew back on February 4th, 91 to write this very book. But just rolling, so the complete opposite contrast. Rolling green hills, farmers, country roads, so the complete opposite to what Melbourne was.
Yeah.
But lastly, in saying that, and again, I've been told it's changed because I haven't been there for many years, but where I met my future wife, or ex-wife now, but future wife at the time, pre-travelling, however I want to word that, but it was a place called Arcata in Northern California. It's where Humboldt State University is. It's roughly 275 miles north of San Francisco. And you guys might know it from just the humongous big redwood trees that you get. That whole area up there is just full of trees. And I felt very content there. And as a kid, I always wanted to just live the American cottage life, and on and off. I was probably there on and off about probably 4 or 5 years, and at the time when I was there was 7,700 students, and I knew about 1,000 of them. It took me about probably 4 to 5 hours to walk from one side of the small campus to the other, because the second I finished talking to some person, to one person here, and somebody else there, it was just this whole barrage of people on the way. So.
So you live here in the States now?
I've lived in Prescott, Arizona since Friday, November 22nd of 2002, so I've been here 12 and a half years.
Wow. So do you go back to England every now and then?
It's a good question. I did go back for 9¼ years, from 93 until 2000, 2002, and then I went back in 06, 7, 2008, 2010, and then last year.
So you're a citizen here in the States?
Green card holder.
Oh.
Yeah, best of both worlds.
My parents were from England and they grew up in 1940, so.
Whoa.
So I have a lot of, my parents told me a lot during World War II and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So my dad was Scottish, my mom was English.
That era always fascinates me, and I know there's many stories around. I went to go for a walk last year when I was with my stepdad, and he never really spoke too much about the Second World War, but he was saying, because we were from Southend, which is a coastal town, and he was telling me that this very spot where we were at that time, he said when he was about, I think 5 or 6 years old, because he was born in 1937, if I'm certainly correct, but he said, you know, a doodle bug, which during the Second World War the Germans used to send across, he just went right across. I'm just like, wow, just to talk to people that have that, you know, era in them still. It's rarity in this day and age. Anybody else? Yes.
Yes, if you could go back and give yourself advice when you first started out, what would it be?
First of all, as I put in my book, take less luggage, as silly as that sounds. I mean, seriously. I mean, I'm no disrespect to some of you guys, when you go on vacation, you've got about 15 suitcases behind you, but the thing was, when I travelled, the unique, why I wrote my book, and I'll answer your question, by the way, why I wrote my book is many people travel the world. Sometimes it's paid for with Natural Geographic, sometimes you're going on vacation, but you've got the luxury of always having a place to stay. You've got the luxury of you've got money in your pocket, or you've got a car outside, a rental car. And with me, it wasn't that at all. I basically started, well, I admit, I started back in the era, if you guys might remember this, back in the late 80s, and I saw one the other day, the big old luminous framed rucksack. That's what I started with. You don't see them around too much anymore. And I realised, you know, carrying that in my tent, I thought, I can't do this, especially in Australia, the States, Canada, New Zealand, etc. So when I went to Australia, I mean, for many, many years I was known for just having this little bag about this big, and then it was my teddy bear called Ernie, who travelled about 235,000 miles in the end, if I'm certainly correct. My journal, clean clothes, of course, toothbrush. It was just a bare minimal as such, but with my camera. So I would say, someone that's starting out is to obviously do the bare minimal that you can, but I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I had a friend ask me the same kind of question the other day, and I said to him, in this day and age, it's so much easier for you guys because you've got the internet. There's websites now that I'm unaware of, but there's websites where you can get in touch with somebody in Japan and say, do you want to like couch swap, I think they call it. So in other words, you'll go and spend some time with that person, and sometime down the road they'll come and spend time with you. So I think it's a lot easier, but to extend your question, I'm sorry, in the 10 years I travelled, I never, ever asked anybody who was giving me a ride while I was hitchhiking for a place to stay. And in the 10 years I was on the road, I slept up 7 times. I never once paid for a hotel or a motel room. And the very accommodation for most of my travels came to me for the very people that picked me up hitchhiking. That's why that gave me inspiration to write the story, because I just found the story to be so unique unto itself. So getting back to your question, definitely that. And I think secondly, just had some street sense, some street smart. There's a lot of people that go out there today. I've heard horror stories over the years where someone's daughter or son just ends up in a real crisis in some other country and just not really thought too much about the situation. And it's whether it's a financial problem or getting mugged, whichever it might be.
I want to ask you, were you ever afraid? It's really frightened by somebody?
I was once picked up, one of my stories in my book was once picked up by a guy called the Knife Man in Australia, in Queensland, northeastern Queensland, and as soon as I got in the van, he basically didn't come to a stop, he just kind of almost drew a roll, and I kind of ran along and got in, and as I jumped in, the first thing he does is shows me this, like, I think it was like a 14, 16 inch machete knife. He goes, you know, they call me the Knife Man, and I'm like, well, by this time he's rolling along. But the story, fun enough, that I told live on TV with Tonya Mock and Lou Riggs, which I won't go into because it's too graphic, and on live on television I kind of got too much into it, I think. But yes, there was one time, and a guy took me basically from northeastern Australia inwards, as in westwards, and that's real hardcore desert. I mean, most of Australia, almost like Canada, the way most people live around the border as such. And you know, a guy took me in the middle of nowhere, about 200 clicks in, just dust, nothing, water. We'd seen, I think, one vehicle all the way in, and something happened there that I found very, very scary, where basically, to get to the point, the man laid next to me of a night time, completely naked, and you can understand his intentions, which wasn't my intentions at all. And here we are in the middle of the desert, and I just thought, wow, this is it, you know. I just said to him, sorry, you know, that's not my sexual preference as such. And it sounds funny explaining years later, but it was a very scary situation to be in. That's not part of the book, by the way. There's, you know, there's a lot on in my travels, but yeah, that was very, very scary. And there was one time in all the years that I hitchhiked, I never ever refused any ride at all. But there was one time when I was in Australia somewhere, if memory serves me correct, and I remember this car pulled over, and it was just this feeling I had, just this gut instinct, and I just thought no, and I just said to the guy, wait for the next ride, and he went off, and it's the only time I think I really ever refused a ride due to my, again back to your question, my gut instincts, just my street smart, or whatever you're going to call it, just something just said to me, no, this isn't cool, this isn't right.
Interesting.
Yes.
How many years total did you?
I left on Sunday, July 12th, 87, and really, I'll say I kind of stopped travelling around May-ish, well not even that, probably just before May of 1997. I met my girlfriend at the time on Thursday, January 23rd of 1997, and that was in Arcata, California. And really, even though Arcata was a main hub for me, and I did a lot of this book there, hence the college channel I told you about earlier, so I would say it's probably a good 8 3/4 run out of a 10-year actual time frame as such.
Do you want to do it again?
If I could go back in time, yeah, I would do it again, but maybe a little bit different. But I feel that everyone always says this, you know, hitchhiking is a very, very hard thing to do. And in this day and age, I mean, I've lived here, you know, I've been in the States since '89, so I've been here more than I have in my life now. But I remember even back in that era, and when I was hitchhiking, you'd see a lot more hitchhikers around. Yeah. And then you see these movies today like Wolf Creek, and there's many others out there, and not so much that's based on hitchhiking, but the same sort of thing in a way. And it's just, there's been some really horrific things that happened to hitchhikers, and again, more so, I think, in the 60s and 70s, there were some crazy times back then. I know you guys, most of you in this room have lived through that, but yes.
Do you have children?
I have one child.
Do you want that child to hitchhike?
Hitchhike, no. It's funny because I know I've got all this to come when the time comes, and some of you are probably, I imagine most of you in this room are probably parents. It's a very hard situation when it's almost like, it's a silly way of putting it, it's like you swore a lot when you were a teenager, and now you're a teenager swearing years later. You're trying to tell not to swear, but the thing is, you know, you swore yourself. It's a bad example of that analogy and stuff. But, you know,
I'm say you.
Hey, I would be scared. My father, I know my father. I look back at it now. You know, I don't know what I put my father through. I don't mean in a negative way, but I know he used to worry about me all the time. He was a warrior as it was. Let alone on top of this, you got his son, you're the other side of the world, or the United States, you know, or Canada, just hitchhiking, and a few phone calls here, and a letter once a week, whatever it might be. But I wouldn't want him to. But again, it's his choice. Yes.
Is your book available at the library?
Yes, there is a copy, I think, at both libraries. I think Prescott Valley's got it, and Diane Malkovich has got her own signed copy that I think she put into the system over there. And I believe Katie at the Prescott Library, I think she put her own copy into the system as well.
Did you bring any with you?
Yes, there's a box over there. I got some ordered from basically Amazon about a week and a half ago. So freshly done as such. Yes.
Have you seen that they have a robot that's hitchhiking across the United States?
No, I didn't.
He just finished doing Canada. What it is, it's a stationary robot,
yes.
Okay, and they have it seated, and the idea is that you're supposed to stop, pick it up, put it in your vehicle, and take it as far as you're going. When the batteries go down, you're supposed to change the batteries. So it's the honor program, you know. It's the honor system, you know. You pick it up and you drop it off, and you just leave it along the side of the road and let someone else pick it up.
Hopefully it will write a book one day. I mean,
It's been in the news. It already went all the way across Canada. Now they're doing it across the United States. They started it yesterday or the day before.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me that.
Yeah, look it up. I'm sure you can Google it. So, yeah.
Are you employed?
Yes, I've been a school bus driver in Prescott Valley since Monday, March 28th of 2006. So, humble.
Great on the dates.
Please keep your dates.
Yeah.
You can always check them if you want.
Are you like, who is some of the people that have total recall? Do you have? Because when you say the day of the week and the day, most of us are lucky we can remember the day.
Or the year.
I don't know, I just retain certain dates, I guess.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Well, we thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.